Hi, in this video we're going to cover sales taxes in the USA. And this is still a really grey area. I mean, there's no absolute laws either way. This has been changing over the last few months and years on selling on Amazon. Some states are becoming a little bit more forceful in trying to get sellers to collect sales tax. Other states don't really seem to care. It's quite complicated. I do recommend, if you want absolute clarity, to speak with an accountant, tax lawyer in your home country or home state who has Amazon experience and also understands US sales tax law. So, I mean, if you're living overseas, then you need to use a US accountant, of course. A UK accountant's not going to understand this if you're selling from the UK, but you do need to make a decision as to how you're going to approach this when you start off. And so basically, some people right from day one, they set up everything perfectly. They go to each state, they get a sales tax permit, which takes time. They check with their accountant, they collect the sales tax for all the different states, and then they file every monthly, quarterly, or annually with those states and pay all of the sales tax. On the other end, you've got some international sellers, if they're based from the UK or based from Asia, they don't even bother. They completely ignore all the laws on sales tax. They don't collect any sales tax, and they don't file any sales tax too. Basically, if you don't do it, there's a liability that can come up that they might, come after you for whatever that tax is in the future. So basically, what I recommend is right at the start, when you're setting up your Amazon business, you don't need to file for sales tax permits with all the states. Why? Because you haven't sold anything yet. Okay, so you're really, really early on in the process. You're far too early in the process to worry about complicated taxes, etc. The best thing to do is basically to set up a threshold mentally. Something like, if my sales tax that I should have collected reaches $1,000 in Arizona or reaches $1,000 in California, then at that stage, I'm going to start to collect sales tax and file and do everything there. I mean, if you only owe them $50 and they came after you for that $50, would it be a concern to you? Whatever that limit is for you, whatever that threshold is, if a certain state came after you for a certain amount of money, what amount of money would make you wish that you had done it before and collected it and paid it rather than later? I mean, for some people, if they're going to owe a state any more than a couple of $100s, they start to feel uncomfortable. Then what you should do is, once you hit $200 worth of sales tax in the state, is to get a sales tax permit for that state and to register, file and collect for that. It means that you don't have to do it for all states. It saves you some time, it saves you some effort. It's only the ones that meet your threshold, then you do it. Yes, this is grey. Yes, this is not 100% the proper way to do it. The proper way to do it is to do it for every single state. But, it's not always practical to spend all your time filing, collecting sales taxes. You need to run a business too. So, okay, I'm going to explain a little bit about how the sales tax works, and then we'll wrap this video up with a further discussion on, the best way to approach it. Okay, so basically, sales taxes apply when a state believes you have a nexus in that state. And by nexus, they mean you either have employees, a warehouse, an office space there, maybe property, business assets. But many states also count having inventory in a state as sales tax nexus. And so what this means is, if Amazon's warehouse is based in a state and your inventory is in there, then you have nexus in that state. And Amazon has, I think, around 20 warehouses around the US. That's changing. So which states you have nexus in changes. Also, for our shipments, even though we ship everything to one Amazon warehouse, we found that they would then split that order and send it to 2 other warehouses. So our stock was always across 3 different warehouses in America. We weren't across every single warehouse. So in theory, we have nexus in those 3 states because we have inventory there. So it really depends on where your product's selling, where Amazon moves the inventory to, as to where you have nexus as well. So that's something that is individual to you as a seller. Everyone's stock gets put into different warehouses on Amazon, and so the warehouses and the states that apply changes for everyone. There's no simple solution to cover everyone. Okay, so nexus is having inventory in a state, except Virginia, New York, and Arizona have ruled that Amazon just storing your inventory and selling it for you, shipping it out when you sell it as a third party is not nexus. So you don't need to worry about those states in terms of nexus. But for those states where Amazon is storing your stock and it's not Virginia, New York, or Arizona, then in theory you need to get a sales tax permit to collect sales tax and then send that state the sales tax. It's illegal to collect sales tax without the permit. So even though on Amazon you can collect sales tax and set it all up, you don't want to do that unless you've already first filed with the state. So you file with the state, you get your sales tax permits, you go into Amazon, you update your permit number into there, and Amazon will automatically collect the right amount of taxes on your orders from customers. But the problem is, at the end of the year, when it comes to filing sales tax and your own personal taxes, it's a nightmare. The other thing is, some states need you to file monthly. Some states need you to file quarterly, some annually. There's quite complicated rules about, whether the product was shipped from or to a state where you have nexus as well. And so what you end up with is on a monthly basis having to go through all of this complicated sales tax information for all the different states and working out, I owe California $98, I owe this state $221, I need to pay them by the end of this month. It becomes a bit of a nightmare. So I strongly recommend that you use some sort of automation software, and the number one software in the space at the moment is a tool called TaxJar. And this can connect to your Amazon account, and it can show you your sales tax data and also prepare all the reports for every state as well. So you can connect this into Amazon and it will do all of that for you. And what I recommend doing is to plug that in when you've sold over $10,000 worth of products, right? There's not much point doing it when you've just sold $1,000 worth of products. Why? State taxes are usually 2 or 3%. It varies state to state. So 3% of $1,000 is $30. So if you've only sold $1,000 of products, you've got about $30 of liability maximum, absolute maximum. And most likely it's far less than that. So at $10,000 sold, you potentially have $300 of liability split by 50 states. So that's about $6 each, right? It's not something to panic over. So once you've crossed that threshold of having sold $10,000 of Amazon products, then you can start to look at, I need to collect sales tax. I need to connect TaxJar to my Amazon account so I can see who I owe how much. And what you can do, and this is the best way I think, is you hit that 10,000 limit of sales, then you start to monitor how much sales tax you're going to owe to each state on a month-to-month basis. And once it crosses this kind of threshold, the number you're comfortable with, then you go ahead and get the permit and start collecting sales tax for that particular market, right? So let's say, I've sold $25,000 worth of products on Amazon. I've collected TaxJar and it's showing me that the last 12 months, I owe $500 to California for sales tax. And all the other states are around $40, $50. I could ignore all the really small ones. Why? Because it's going to cost me way more than $100 of time and effort just to pay the $30 to these smaller states. So you could just focus on collecting the sales tax for the markets and states where you have the biggest exposure. It could be 2 or 3 states only. And the rest you ignore, right? This is slightly gray because you're basically saying if it's under $100 a year, I'm not even going to look at it because it's too low a limit. In theory, you should pay it even if it's 1 cent, right? And some people will want to dot the I's and cross the T's. They'll do all of this paperwork, but I think it's reasonably low liability if at any state you have only a maximum of a couple of $100 of sales tax due, if they do ask you for it and they put a penalty on top of that, max it's going to be $250. If you're selling hundreds of thousands of dollars on Amazon, you can then pay that amount, right? So wait until you've sold $10,000 worth of products on Amazon, then you can revisit sales taxes and connecting some sort of automation software to review. The other thing is you should definitely get an accountant anyway for your Amazon business, so at year end you're definitely prepared to file, etc. It's probably best to speak to your accountant well before you start selling on Amazon, just so that you can have the right tax structure in place to minimize taxes for you and your personal location. If you're based in one state, it's going to be very different from another state to if you're international. So you do need to speak to an advisor for your personal situation. And these guys I came across, MuseMinded, they do bookkeeping and income tax for Amazon businesses specifically, right? And so if you're looking for an accountant or a bookkeeper, I do recommend you go for someone with Amazon experience, because they'll be able to help you save taxes and give you advice that you wouldn't get anywhere else. So if you're doing up to 100K per month, it's $400. It's not too bad, right? And while you're under 30K, it's $200 per month, and that's all your transactions, all your taxes, all your state taxes done. It's not a bad service. It's well priced. I mean, if you're finding someone else directly, it may end up costing you more. So these are someone you can consider looking at once you get to that level. I mean, if you're only selling $1,000 a month on Amazon, you don't really need to be worrying too much about that other than year-end taxes. So your first focus should be on selling more. Then once you're selling more, you can deal with these more complicated admin things of sales tax permits, etc.